Tell me, what can you buy with $70? The answer is a lot. Groceries, half a tank of gas, 4 months at Planet Fitness, and also Civilization 7. With how expensive the game is and all the mixed reviews from the public and positive reviews from the creators, people are wondering how good is Civilization 7 and should you buy it? For me personally, I got this game's Founder Edition for free, and for those who saw my stream, yes, Steam has given me my money back for buying the deluxe, and thus I feel I am in the best position to give an opinion on whether you should buy it or not. And spoilers, I won't be fence-sitting, because today I will be telling you definitively whether I think this game is something you should spend your money on or not. Kind of, but we'll get into that soon. The first thing I want to talk about is the good about the game, starting with the graphics. Absolutely stunning. Going back to a more realistic Civ 5 graphics really has done wonders with this game, especially when they're not trying to aim for realism, which will extend the longevity of this game as well. This bodes good for anyone who is afraid that they will drop this game within the next decade, or they'll come out with a new game maybe 2 or 3 years from now, as this game is built to last. But while it does look beautiful, the most important aspect of a game is obviously the gameplay. And for Civ, that gameplay starts with its combat changes. The generals are incredible, the ability to pack units into formations reduces micromanaging that has killed otherwise winning runs. And with generals, there's a unit that will stay with you throughout the ages, so getting promotions on them in the early game will allow you to dominate the late game even if you don't end up taking any cities early on, ensuring that you'll always want a general nearby when in combat, which adds to the strategy, especially when, unlike previous Civ entries, the spear unit is finally removed. You have cav, you have ranged, you have sieged, and melee, each of which are effective at a specific job and have a use, especially when you factor in the unique units in every age. Unique units that can be used to capture the multiple districts you need to further enhance the strategic aspect of this game, because you don't just need the city center anymore, you actually need to capture every single defensive district in the city's radius. Overall, the combat is so much deeper, but more importantly, even the naval combat is better. With navigable rivers, you can now use ships inland, and with the age of exploration almost forcing you to colonize. With half the victory conditions in the game dependent on foreign lands, you will need ships for at least the latter 2 ages. This was such a problem with previous Civ games since you typically didn't even need ships because there was absolutely zero reason to colonize, especially with the loyalty mechanic in Civilization 6 that pretty much just made it so if you did try to colonize, you would just lose the city anyways. But this isn't the only thing made viable from previous games. You see, back in Civ 6 and before, you spawn in tundra or desert, that's a restart, which can be so frustrating when your leader doesn't have a start bias as you just keep restarting the game trying to get a playable map. But now, even in tundra and desert, you get the same yields as in grasslands and plains, which allows every start to be viable. This not only makes things even between every player's start, but also means that niche picks like Russia or Canada in Civ 6 don't have to worry about the lack of food early on in the tundra, with even something like mountains being workable late, making this game extremely fun and creative, and every start being a good start no matter where you start on the map. And the fun and creativity also extends to the victory paths. The paths are separated into 4 different pathways each era, which give you bonuses you can bring into the next era if you do end up making the path or getting a golden age or something like that. And for most of them, they feel significantly different from the others, meaning you can pick and choose which one you want to go for depending on your game. For example, if you went for a culture game and need the 7 wonders in the Age of Antiquity, but there are just no more wonders to build, you could then go on the war path or focus on researches to get codexes, or build more merchant units and trade buildings so you can get the 20 resources. The only issue I do have is the fact that the economic and militaristic paths in the first 2 eras are pretty much one and the same. For example, early on you conquer cities, you gain more resources and slots for the economic pathway in the Age of Antiquity. And if you colonize and conquer in the exploration age, you're gonna get more cities with treasure fleets. But aside from that minor nitpick, the integration of victory paths is seamless and still contains the late game victory conditions to win the game found in other Civ genres. And the integration of the victory paths are almost as seamless as the integration of the Civ switching. The biggest factor that would determine this game's success was the Civ switching. When you look at Humankind, the fact that you can switch entire Civs and that you're beside, maybe the Mayans one day, and then the next day you wake up and they're the English, completely killed immersion. and put that game into its early grave. Something so critical to the game, the foundation it was built on, being a bad feature meant that the game had no hope left. But in Civ 7, the fact that the focus is on the leaders and not the civs, and the fact that the leaders have the colors, and don't even know what civ they're actually playing unless you look for it in the game, is great. Every age, you're playing beside Napoleon or beside Isabella, keeping the civ feel from the previous iterations of the genre while adding in more variety to the game depending on your playstyle and how the game is going. And so, unlike Humankind, the foundations for this game are absolutely phenomenal. This is important, as since we'll soon see, there are a lot of bad things about this game, but all the bad things can eventually be ironed out. Unlike the core of the game, being almost perfect means that the game will eventually be good, there's no doubt in my mind. But is it perfect now? Or at least perfect enough, good enough, for you to spend $70 on? Well, let's start off light and look at the bugs. They are everywhere, like units standing on the water, can't click on narrative event choices sometimes, when you load into a turn and accidentally click on the leader portraits, that forces you to restart that same autosave turn. You know, those are all there, but they're not game-breaking. Now, if they will break immersion for you, and that is a problem, yes, there are a lot of bugs that eventually do need to be ironed out. But the fact is that they'll probably work on these bugs sooner rather than later, and that as of now, this isn't Cyberpunk on release. Meaning it's not the biggest problem in the world, unlike the absolutely atrocious UI. I mean, what are we even doing here? The fact that you charge $70 for a game with UI like this, so basic, so incomprehensible, is an affront to everyone who bought this game. We'll get into more detail soon, but the short of it is the fact that you cannot tell what is going on. The game gives so little information that even experienced Civ players get overwhelmed and need a guide just to figure out what the hell's going on sometimes. And when you look at different Paradox releases, stuff like Victoria 3, CK3, the fact that their UI, for the most part, was really good, just adds more salt to the wounds. But of course the UI has been bashed to hell and back, so I won't spend too much time on it. Instead, I want to talk about something I heard someone say on Reddit, that there is no objectively good game design. Now, being on Reddit, you don't even have to have me tell you that that is absolute cap. Now, there are some game design decisions that are subjective, of course. For example, I think they probably shouldn't have added religion in this game if it was just going to be so bare bones. But you might like religion. You might like moving missionaries across the map, having them convert an urban and a rural tile, and then realizing that, no, that's a holy city, so you're not even going to get the relic for it. But there are some game design decisions that are objective, like the search function. With how cluttered the UI is, you would think that a search function, so you can find the library you built 50 turns ago to place Hypatia on, would be implemented, but it isn't. And the reason that this is objective and not subjective is the fact that if you want a search function, then life is a struggle without it. But if you don't want to use the map search function, then you don't have to use it. It isn't distracting at all. It's going to be on the corner of the screen. You want it, you got it. You don't want it, no problem about it. There's no reason not to include a search function, just like there's no reason not to include map tags. One of the best additions in Civ 6, the fact that they didn't include it in this game is baffling. Unironically, there needs to be an internal investigation on how this could have even happened. But even if they included map tags, it still probably wouldn't have shown the yields you would get, like in the previous Civ games, just like in this Civ game how you don't see the yields for the policy cards. The same was true in Civ 6, yes, but you could use a mod for that. For Civ 7, you just have to pray that you have enough specialists or imported resources to make the card you slot in worth it. I will say though that at least a mod for this should come out sooner rather than later, and thus shouldn't be too much of a problem for very long. But considering how popular the mods were in Civ 6, you would at least assume that they would maybe include something like that, give you the yields you're getting for the policy card. But the mod's jobs aren't done there, because I want to talk about something that you literally cannot talk about: the leader choices. Now, this is an issue that just pisses me off. You can't talk about leaders, not because you'll get attacked for it, but the fact that there are so many grifters on the internet that have just hijacked video game and culture discourse, talking about how they want to save video games from the woke mind virus when they just want to get paid for it. Now, maybe at the beginning they were pissed off that, maybe they changed something about their game, turned their favorite character gay or turned him black or whatever, and I can understand why you'd be mad at that. But creators like The Quartering and Endymion, who because of their lust for the bag, have to come out with new videos every other day. They have to talk about something DEI, something masculinity killed, that you have to go deeper and deeper after running out of content to make, to the point where these channels have started talking about something as stupid as Spider-Man 2 forcing Miles Morales down your throat, when anyone who played the game knows that isn't the case. You know, this isn't the video for it, but anyone who watches this video that doesn't have an agenda will see, oh yeah, no, they just hate it because he's fucking black. That's it. And the thing is, it's so obvious they don't give a shit. There are so many creators who do talk about this kind of stuff and do have a point and are trying to sort of change the discourse for video game discussion. I'm not saying that just because of the fact that you don't want this kind of political discourse shoved down your throat, you're a bad person. But what I am saying, because of the fact you have to reach further and further just so you can get a bag for the next video, is poisoning video game discourse. And this poisoning of the discourse means that you can't even talk about how Harriet Tubman being in this game is just an awful decision without getting grouped into the racist camp. And she isn't a good choice. Neither's Ibn Battuta, neither is Lafayette. The people who play this game are people who like history and city building. That's the entire point of this genre, to build a civilization that'll stand the test of time. If you're not a fan, you're probably just gonna play Fortnite or Call of Duty or 2K. People who are interested in the strategy game genre want to play Alexander, Augustus, Napoleon, and while these leaders will be in the game if they aren't already, it's just baffling that they include leaders like Ibn Battuta, and I'm Arab. This isn't even brown man bad. It's that there are so many better leaders you could have chosen that settling on Ibn Battuta is like having Lewis and Clark lead America. And the same disingenuous argument used is, well, Gandhi wasn't a leader. No, he was. He wasn't the leader of an independent India, but he was the leader of the resistant movement that broke the shackles of colonial rule. If you wanted the same for black people, then explain to me how Martin Luther King or Malcolm X are not superior to Tubman. What she did was great, make no mistake about it, and it isn't even just about her. I piss on Confederate graves every day of the week, which is why I wish they included more leaders like Lincoln, like Gandhi, like Sun Yat-sen, instead of just the baffling decision to include historic people, great people, that in essence aren't even in the top 10,000 of the leaders you'd want in a Civ game. But even that would be acceptable if the Civilopedia wasn't dog shit. You ask for a unique unit and what it does, I don't know, figure it out. Oh, I wonder how to see where my towns are sending the food. Let me ask Civ, and it responds that your guess is as good as mine. This isn't a design decision, it's the fact that they didn't have time to finish this feature. Literally, the game released with features like fresh water and whole civs missing from the Civilopedia. This was rushed, and the problem with that is the information you gain from the UI from the game is so lackluster, you will be left blind. And while that isn't too much of a problem in the earlier eras, by the time you get to the modern age, it's almost unplayable. There are so many cities, so many buildings, that you have no idea what's going on. It just makes you want to restart back to your previous age, which is the entire reason they added the age thing in the first place, so people would want to play to the end of the game. And the game's problems are far from over. You can't customize city names, animations can't be skipped, which, like we said in the clutter section, means you have to wait for the units to finish moving, or just pray you don't mess up the unit placement of your other units, which has happened to me and others countless times. It's like this game wasn't even meant for the player. And that's doubly so for one of the worst parts they changed in this game, the leader screens. There is no aura at all. Their animations are limited, there's no background, they don't even talk to you. Before in Civ 6, it felt like you were talking to a historical leader, negotiating with them, and their leader screens gave them personality. And you want to know the best part, the worst part? Even Civ 6's leader screens are dogshit compared to Civilization 5. Now, I think Civ 6 is objectively a better game than 5, but I mean goodness, when you met Augustus in Civ 5, it looked like he was about to tell you that your family's waiting outside, skinned alive and mounted on a cross. Montezuma was about to skewer your heart to appease Tzaltlacoco or whatever the fuck his name was. Nebuchadnezzar throws a cup when he first... What? He could come catch these hands if he did that to me. Theodora had me ready to jump through the screen if she just asked during that. I would have broken my monitor. And what do we have in Civ 7? Twink Augustus? The leaders are just terrible, and the AI is worse because get this, you're winning the war, conquered 4 cities, eliminated their armies, and the only thing you can trade is cities? Why not allow us to trade for resource rights, or make them promise not to settle near us, or keep their standing army limited to like a few units, or make them our vassal? Instead, you can just wipe them out from the game if you do enough damage. And speaking of settling, loyalty is removed, and forward settling is back in full force. The AI snipes one tile they can settle in between your empire. It doesn't matter how good the city is. It doesn't matter how many tiles are available. They will take that city. Another baffling decision with such an easy fix. Back in Civ 6, there is a mod that disables loyalty, and it does that not by removing the mechanic, but by making the mechanic not work. Now here's the difference. The loyalty would still be shown on the screen. Like you go to settle with the settler, it'll show you -20 loyalty. And because of that, the AI would still respect the loyalty numbers and wouldn't forward settle you. But even if you had negative loyalty, the mechanic just wouldn't work. You wouldn't lose loyalty. It not only removed the headache of loyalty, but it also kept in the reason that loyalty was even added in the first place. And so I ask, why couldn't we have that for Civ 7, instead of the AI just straight up settling in the middle of my empire? And even if you go to conquer that settled city back, the AI is so bad, they had to double the deity benefits. 8 combat strength on deity? That is absolutely insane. Because the thing is, the combat strength for units are almost exactly the same as Civ 6's units, where the bonus on deity was only +4. And this isn't me saying that the game is hard and whatnot. There are ways to get a lot more than 8 combat strength, but it shows how bad the AI is. I have played for 50 hours right now. I haven't seen the AI make use of generals once. One time, somebody came on deity to declare war on me, and they had their units in an army. But you know what they did? They declared war, they kept that general there without unfurling their troops, I killed that general in the next turn, and now they were without a general. The fact that you need 8 combat strength just to give us a challenge is evident when the AI rarely uses commanders. I know how difficult it is to program an AI, I do, but at the end of the day, it still is a major problem, not just to me, but to many others who have actually played this game. And all these features, the AI, the lack of peace deals, the UI problems, the late game clutter, are all because the game just isn't finished. And you know what I say to that? I say that's okay. Why? Because we would all rather have an unfinished Civ 7 now, where the developers can take our feedback and improve the game, than them to take like another year or two to polish the game while we're still stuck without a new game. I really do think this is the best option, but there's just one problem. The game, with all its unfinished features, is coming out with paid DLC the month after release. I don't care if this is the standard for the video game industry. I don't care if they've done the same thing in previous Civ games. You're telling me that this game doesn't even have a complete Civilopedia, and you've already revealed the leader and the Civ that are coming out with the paid DLC. And right now I just finished a video that just saw them bringing this game to VR. I just can't anymore, and neither can anyone else. Look at the Steam reviews. There are a max of 50,000 concurrent players, a huge amount that, mind you, paid extra money to play this game early. These are the Civ super fans, the people who not only love this series, but are the ones open-minded enough to give a new iteration a try. Why? Because if you were one of those super fans who would say Civ 4 or Civ 5 is the best, and everything after is dog shit that I wouldn't even step on, you wouldn't pre-order and spend $100 minimum for a game if you were that resistant to change. Especially when for months we've seen the gameplay of this game. We've had creators play this game in the age of antiquity, in the age of exploration. If you didn't like what you saw, you wouldn't have spent $100 to pre-order this game. And what do all these super fans who did spend $100, who were open-minded enough, have to say? Mixed reviews. Half these people who would be the most receptive to this game say the game is bad, and when it gets released to the general public, I can only assume that those numbers will change to mostly negative as the general audience gets into it. And the most disingenuous counter to that point is the Civilization life cycle, where the game starts out and everyone hates it, and then after a while, people say this is the best in the series, meant to insinuate that any criticisms to this game is not because of the problems with it, but because people are mad that it didn't just remake the previous game. No. Look me in the eye and tell me that base game Civ 5 was even a decent game, that Civ 6 base game was even good. The reason this graphic that kept getting spread around is true is because every Civ game has released in such a bare-bones state that people would rather keep playing the previous game than the new one with all the shiny additions. And now before I say whether I recommend this game, how do I feel about it personally? I love it. The game has a great base and is extremely fun. I have 50 hours in this game with no dead time from leaving the game open on Steam, and I still itch for more. I'm an addict. I swear to God, the heroin is coming directly from the microphone into my body. It really is a fun game with a great gameplay loop that will only be improved upon as we get further iterations, more DLC, more free updates, more fixes, and I already have a load of great ideas for videos that you should look out for. No question, I will be playing this game. And while I was given the Founders Edition for free, I would buy the Founders Edition anyway, but I just can't, in good conscience, tell people to buy this game when I don't know their financial situations. So should you buy it? Well, you've watched videos and streams, and if you really do like this game and have the money to spare, then go for it. You'll have fun, and I do believe that over the course of a few years, you will 1000% get your money back. But if you don't have the money to make a long-term investment, if you can only afford a few games a year, or maybe even have another game in mind, I would not recommend buying this game yet, not at the $70 price tag. I would highly recommend either waiting for a sale or when this game's issues get ironed out.